Do graphics in video games matter? To a certain extent, yes, but overall, no. And that's our video for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Click like, subscribe, go to my OnlyFans. No, but really, video games are a bit tricky in the sense that you have to balance all aspects of the design almost perfectly to have a successful game. Today, I want to focus on and discuss two of these aspects: graphics and gameplay. In short, graphics are all the things you can see on the screen, and gameplay is how you interact with the game. So graphics are pretty important, because without them, you wouldn't have any visuals. And if you've been paying attention to the video so far, visuals are rather important in a video game. But they aren't everything. A game doesn't need to be super visually impressive to be considered good. It does, however, need to have good gameplay. Take, for example, older video games. 1972's Pong, 1980's Pac-Man, and finally, 1985's Super Mario Bros. I'm bringing up Pong because it's one of the first video games that became popular, and I think it's important to look at Pong for what it is and try to figure out why it got popular. Pong is a virtual top-down version of ping pong. Graphically, it's composed of white lines to simulate the table, numbers to indicate the score, 2 other white lines to simulate paddles, and 1 dot that bounces between the paddles. Gameplay-wise, you move the paddles up and down to hit the ball back and forth and score on your opponent. That's it. There are sounds that play too, but they're all just different pitched beeps and boops. Ah, the sounds of the 70s. So why was Pong so popular if it was so simplistic? Well, it was simplistic. Pong was just fun. It wasn't complicated. It didn't need to be. The graphics didn't need to be more detailed, and nobody at the time expected them to be. The gameplay also didn't need to be too overly complicated because it's literally just ping pong. So what I'm trying to say is, Pong is a prime example of games that don't need to look the best to be enjoyed by the masses. But it certainly doesn't hurt a game if it has some visual flair. Pac-Man, the instant classic. Everybody knows how to play Pac-Man. Eat the dots and keep away from the ghosts. It's a very simple premise. But how did it get so popular? Well, Pac-Man offered something new for the arcade at the time. See, up until that point, you had a vague idea of what it was you were playing. Pong was ping pong, Space Invaders you're shooting the aliens, Asteroids you're shooting the asteroids, Galaxian is shooting the aliens but they're more mobile now, and Pac-Man is... what the hell am I looking at? A block of cheese running from hungry children in differently colored bed sheets? His name is Pac-Man. Does he sell cigarettes and those are nicotine-crazed hooligans running for a fix while I gobble up all the tobacco? Remember, it's the 80s, they didn't have vapes yet. Anyway, what is Pac-Man? The visual design combined with the collectathon type gameplay was very unique at the time. Pac-Man's graphical style of relatively simple yet colorful shapes drew people in, and they stayed for the challenge of clearing the maze of all the dots. Pac-Man wasn't as detailed as Galaxian, and it wasn't as technically impressive as Asteroids either, but the distinctive graphical style and addictive gameplay made Pac-Man a major success. Oh, and I googled what is Pac-Man out of curiosity, and he is identified as a Pac-person. So, have fun sleeping tonight with that knowledge. Alright, Mario time.
Yo, it's the Mario Brothers, and plumbing's the game. Found the secret water zone while working on the drain. Lend the princess a hand in the mushroom land. Join the action with the plumbers, you'll be hooked on the brothers.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I lied to you a few minutes ago, right to your face. We aren't just talking about Super Mario Bros. We're gonna talk about Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3. All of these games are great, and better yet, they all have something new to add to the table. Super Mario Bros. 1 introduced the core staples of the Mario franchise, such as Bowser, Goombas, question mark blocks, power-ups, etc., as well as establishing the game series as a 2D platformer. I'm not gonna verbally list every little thing that was added, so I'll visually list what the game's added as we go on. It'll look a little something like this. Super Mario Bros. 2 shook things up a bit by having a somewhat different style of gameplay, the ability to pick characters, and a few different enemy types. It also apparently takes place in a dream, which might be why the game seems so visually vibrant compared to the other two. And finally, we get to Super Mario Bros. 3, which added the most content that we still see in the franchise today. Some new power-ups, some new enemies, and it introduced the Koopalings. Another thing this game did was return to the older style of gameplay from Super Mario Bros. 1. And to top all this off, each game looks amazing. They got better with every entry, which is surprising for the last two because they were released within 2 weeks of each other. Either way, these 3 games make up a solid trilogy of Mario games with easy to pick up gameplay and visually distinctive graphics to go along with it. Which brings me to my next tangent. Did I ever tell you guys what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is buying almost the exact same game over and over again, expecting shit to majorly change. That is crazy.
Yeah, Nintendo must have thought we were all pretty crazy from the years 2006 to 2013.
The new Super Mario Bros. Series has gained a reputation for being some of the most bland and generic Mario games ever. To be fair though, that assessment is only partially correct. These games on their own are fine. If you were to pick one up and play it, you would probably have a good time. The problems arise when you view these games as a series. When you do that, you begin to see why people associate these 2 words with these 4 words. In these games, nothing really sticks out and grabs your attention. New Super Mario Bros. Level design feels almost exactly the same across all entries. The games very rarely switch anything up. The enemies you fight are nearly all recycled from older Mario games, and finally, the power-ups that were added are just not very intriguing. Don't get me wrong, a few of them are cool, but there's nothing groundbreaking being introduced here. You can tell that these games played it way too safe, and you can see that right off the bat from the graphics. Here's footage from all new Super Mario Bros. Games. As you can see, I have not labeled any of them. You might be able to pinpoint which one the DS version is because of its resolution, but other than that, I think you'll be hard-pressed to figure out which one is which. And therein lies the main problem. New Super Mario Bros. Has stuck with the same graphical style and gameplay throughout the entirety of its existence. And while the graphics are good and got better in resolution with each entry, the gameplay stayed the same. If you compare footage from the original games, you can at least tell that these are different games, but the same cannot be said for New Super Mario Bros. Many other game franchises are guilty for almost the same thing. Madden, Call of Duty, Pokémon, Far Cry, all of these games have been reusing the same basic gameplay formula over and over again with very little changes and newer graphics each time. The games are still okay, but they don't feel like completely brand new experiences. People have started to call stuff like this out, which finally brings me to my main point of this entire segment. Just because the game looks nice graphically does not mean it'll be a good game. However, the inverse is true as well. I don't just want to talk about old arcade games and platformers. Let's take a look at some truly classic games and figure out why they are still talked about to this day. Half-Life and Halo Combat Evolved. Both of these games are over 20 years old, and even to this day they still hold up visually. Allow me to explain. Video games from this era didn't really have a choice when it came to looking rather primitive because 3D games were still relatively new. So they had to work within their technological limits and push the hardware to get the best result possible. So as opposed to looking at these games from a purely graphical standpoint, let's look at them stylistically. Half-Life is a sci-fi horror game. The areas you travel throughout most of the game are cramped hallways, decaying areas, and pipe networks. The cramped hallways are usually well lit, but are filled with bodies of scientists, blood all over the place, and everything is in general disarray. The decaying areas are obviously in disrepair. The pipes you walk on and sometimes walk in are rusted and neglected. This tells us everything we need to know about the state of the Black Mesa facility after the incident, and even a little bit about before. This game is really good at show, don't tell. In the earlier areas of the game, most of the aliens are just waiting around for you, but as you progress throughout the game, they start appearing out of thin air with a giant green glow when you enter a new area. This tells you that the invasion is still ongoing, and just because the machine was screwed up doesn't mean the attack was ended. It's small visual choices that go hand in hand with the gameplay that makes this game so interesting. Now, let's move on to Halo. Another sci-fi FPS game, yes, but it is vastly different from Half-Life. Halo lays way into the sci-fi aspect of the visuals. Each level is made to look otherworldly. Even the levels that look most like Earth have certain traits that tell you the complete opposite. Halo's enemies also have something slightly unique about their design. Each one is made with striking colors to contrast with the landscape so you can see them better. It's a small touch, but it helps loads with visual clarity and actually playing the game. Lastly, Halo has this thing where you have to use a flashlight in some levels because it's too dark. It helps keep the tension up as well as to make the level a little more challenging. So you may be asking why I just grossly summarized these two beloved games in specific. Well, it's because they've both received a graphical facelift at one point or another. And one of them is really good, and the other one is Halo Anniversary. Let's start with the good one first. Black Mesa is a remake of the original Half-Life. It improves the graphics while keeping the original style intact, even making it better in some places. This is what every remake or remastered should aim for when updating their game's visuals for the modern era.
Now do you want to see how 343 was f***ing Halo all the way back in 2011?
Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary is notorious for having very poorly reimagined graphics. One of the main complaints is that everything is just so damn bright. Darker levels with fog that kind of create that sense of hesitation when you're walking through them. Nope, not anymore. It's all lit up. You can see everything. There's no surprises. The flashlight has pretty much been made useless. Remember not even a minute ago when I talked about the enemies being made with striking colors so they better contrast with the land so you can, see them? Well, those colors have been toned down, and the surrounding areas have been fitted with more foliage and also more detailed designs. So now, all the enemies kind of blend into the background, and it's harder to actually see them. And this is the best part. Then, when you actually do see them, and you try to shoot them from behind the cover you're probably in, you'll have to worry about whether or not you'll be shooting an invisible rock or tree branch, because they didn't correctly adapt the level geometry. And I don't know if it's just me on this one, but they've managed to make the levels feel less alien like they used to. Don't get me wrong, I know it's Halo, it's not real, but for some reason, when I play with the original graphics, I'm more immersed than when I play with the new graphics. The new graphics kind of make me feel like I'm going through the Pandora area at Disney instead of an alien world. I guess the best way to put it is I'm less immersed in the new graphics than I am in the old ones, if that makes sense. Graphics are a rather difficult subject to talk about because there's so much to consider, mainly because graphics are and always will be a subjective topic. So naturally, writing a final conclusion to this video so far has been a bitch and a half because I don't exactly know how to phrase what I want to say. So I'm just going to try to write my thoughts in a concise way and hope that makes sense. Graphics don't need to be wildly complicated to be good. They just need to properly convey information so that you, the player, can have a good time playing the game. This doesn't mean that games still can't look pretty while conveying this information. That's where style comes in, and you can have a pretty simple style and still have a banger game. If you screw that style up or make multiple games with the same exact style, then you risk making what made the original game so special in the first place. Lastly, graphics cannot save a game. If the gameplay is unengaging, boring, or just plain unenjoyable, then the game probably sucks. Like I said before, graphics matter to a certain extent, but overall, not really. If you made it this far, please tell me your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I'd love to hear if you agree or disagree with some of the stuff I said. I want to make another video like this in the future covering another aspect of video games, so if you'd want that, leave a like and maybe subscribe. As always, have a good day. Bye-bye.